Okay, so we're back for what I'm thinking is probably going to be the last in this series. Let's see how long it takes us. I'm getting ready to work on the emissive channel here, and I'm going to be animating it. So I'm going to go ahead and bring this straight into Unity now. I could do all of, well, the animation you'd actually have to get, they have a separate thing that you need to get to look at the animations here in Substance. They've got a plugin for that. But since I'm going to be, I usually work in Unity anyway, this is a good time to go ahead and take care of that so I can start testing it in Unity. And I usually just make a standalone little file so that I don't have to worry about all the stuff. Now, I had already imported a Substance, but let's just do that from scratch. Okay, so this is easy. You go up to the actual file, because right now this is our graph. This is the actual file. And I publish the selected elements. It's as simple as that. It will go to the last folder I've been in, and I already did this once, like I said, so I called it Substance, so I'm just going to overwrite that file. Yep. And again, you can change your compression mode here. We're going to leave everything like we have it. And we're going to give it a minute to do its thing, so I'm going to pause video. Okay, so let's take a look what's going on here. We have re-importing the material. And what we have here, this is the actual SBSAR file. And then here are the individual maps that make up that substance. So first things first, let's pull this little guy out here. There you are. And we can now apply our substance to, where are you? There's one there. You actually take the substance, not the individual maps, and you apply them to your mesh. So I'm pressing F to focus in on that. This is really awkward. I'm used to working with two screens, so I'm not really digging this working on one screen because there's never enough room. Okay, so one more thing before we get into making the emissives. Since we have this new material here, which just came with when I imported it from Maya, Substance doesn't like to play with all the other shaders. It really only works well with the standard shader, which kind of sucks. But I kind of fell backwards into this, where you can kind of trick. You can actually import your individual maps into here. And then you can go ahead and use, I haven't sort of pre-vetted these shaders, but I have not found a shader that it won't work with. And that's really cool because you can if we'll look at this later, because if you change the colors, I mean, if you actually, do we have our things hooked up? Let's look at our substance. I think we can look at this. I think we already did this. Yeah, check this out. So we'll just do it with the color because this actually applies to everything. As I change the color here, it's going to go ahead and update in there as well. Which is actually really cool because you can kind of do this little, I don't know what you would call it, a daisy chain or whatever, but you're kind of doing like this interlinking thing. And so you can go ahead and make shaders in Shader Forge and apply them to the stuff that you made with Substance. It's kind of a hack, and it's also, I mean, I'm not a developer, but I can't imagine this working in game. I mean, this would be the thing that you would use to like toggle stuff ahead of time. So you can like pre-do your colors, and then whatever that is, you know, is what you have in game, but you wouldn't be able to adjust it, at least not that I can sort of conceptualize. Anyway, so let's get back to Substance Designer and making some emissives. Okay, so if we want an emissive channel, the first thing we need to do is actually make one. You can place it anywhere you'd like. I like to do it up near my color because it's usually related to my color. So again, I'm going to right click, I'm going to add a node, and this time I'm going to all the way down to the bottom, I'm going to do an output node. So I've got my output node highlighted here, and then I go to see its properties, and this is where I decide what it's going to be. So we're going to call this emissive, and if I want, I could put a description, I could put a label. It's a good idea to get into the habit of grouping them, because later on when you have internal libraries, that's a thing. So you just get into the habit of all these guys should be part of the same group, and by default it comes out material. So I just add material, but you can call this anything you want to call it, as long as they're all the same. And finally, the important part is we're going to actually tell it what to put out. So we've got a wide selection of output types, and we have a wide selection of channels, actually all the channels or all the channels together as your, you know, what kind of output you want. We're going to keep it RGBA, and we are going to call it an emissive channel. And that's it. We've made an emissive channel, and so when it creates the substance next time, it will have an emissive channel. So just for now, let's see what this looks like, and we'll pick a color. We'll put it on here, and I guess I'm going to have to tell it to output to 3D again. There we go. I guess because it's a new node, we had to tell it to do that again. So it's emitting this lovely purple color, but it's doing it all over because we have it completely unmasked. So now we're going to start building this emissive channel. And so what we're going to do is we are going to have just these little globe things on the tips. They will have an emissive. And I actually gave this a moment's thought before I started the video, and I decided it would be really cool to have these bars here actually properly masked out. So I went back into my Photoshop file and I made a new mask, which we will now link to the substance file. So I'm going to go back here, I right-clicked, link, bitmap, and I'm going to go back to this file, which is my work in progress file. So now we've already imported whatever we want to import, so I'm going to look specifically for this map, and here it is. It's Space Wheels Emissive Map. It's the new map I made. So I'm just going to bring that one in. Oh yeah, I did it before. So yeah. Okay, so let's bring it out. Oh no, this is a different map. Oh, okay. Well, this is a good example of paying attention in big files to what you're doing with your naming conventions of your layers. I'm going to have to go back and rename one of these layers, because when I went and I did this for this specific... See, initially I just had it all as one big thing, and I forgot I had that map in there. So what it did is it looked at the names. Photoshop doesn't care if your layers are all named the same. It really doesn't care. I mean, it'll automatically give you new layer numbers, but you could have them all called the same thing. It wouldn't care. Substance cares. So I told it not to import the new one. If I had, it would have given me a new one with like a 1 after it. But I'm just to prevent confusion, if I do something like this, I'll go back into the Photoshop file and make sure that all my layers are called different things. Because, like I said, I work with really big files, and I get confused enough as it is without adding to it unnecessarily. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to change the Photoshop file layer names, and we'll do this again. Okay, so let's try this one more time. We gave it a new name. So we're going to right click, link, bitmap, none, and we're going to space wheels emissive mask. So lesson learned, and there it is. This is basically the same idea as this one, only I've added that in. So what I did to get that was a little sort of magic, mostly using the UV map that I can export out of Maya. So I used that as a basis, and I just monkeyed around with some of the stuff, and I just made a new map. Okay, but it's in color, so we're going to have to switch that to grayscale because we're going to use it as a mask. This one I'm just going to get rid of. And now we're going to blend this. So I'm going to bring out a blend. We are taking, this one is going to be masked according to this mask. And now all we're getting, although it's really pixelated because it's super small, because remember the size of your blend node is carried through in this background channel. And we can either bump this up over here using our output size just to take a closer look at it, or we can import a 2K map into here. You see, because this could be a 2K map, it doesn't matter, it has to be this background channel. So this is showing us where this purple area is going to be where our emissive will happen. So let's step this back down again, because we're actually going to, no, you know what? No, we're not. Well, yeah, for the moment, I'm just going to put a black in there. And we'll leave it stepped up. And let's hook it up and see what happens. Alright, so now we're getting something cool. So what's going on here now is it's not emitting anything at all in these black areas. And whatever we end up with our emissive, right now it's just this purple color, will be what emits. I think that looks pretty rad. Right. So the next thing we want to do, well, actually, let's take a look and see how this looks in Unity. I think we probably want this a little lighter. This is going to not, because your emission, the lighter you make it, sort of the brighter it looks. So let's go more like this. That looks more like it's actually a light bulb or whatever it is. Okay. So we go again, we click on our main file, and you could save it first, but it will save it as part of the export process. And we're going to publish the selected elements. And again, we'll overwrite that file, and we'll give it a minute to cook. Okay, so let's take a look here. Oh, we still have that material on there, so we're going to, oh. We have the material, no, we have the substance on there. Okay, that's what it should be. Because this still has no emissive channel. If we, that doesn't mean it can't have an emissive channel. So we just turn on the emission. And drop that in there. So now, again, the emissive would also change with what's going on in the substance, but we've got the substance here. Oh, it didn't do. How weird. It just showed up earlier. Okay, well. Oh, because I have it turned off. Okay. So there we go. Now, we don't have anything in the emissive channel exposed, so we can't really do anything with it, but we will later. But here are all the various things that we had exposed previously, and now we can actually see what they look like in Unity. And I think I said earlier that very often what I'll do is I'll create, I mean, you don't want too many things here. It's, you know, like if the menu is too big, it's a little overwhelming. But it's nice sometimes to create temporary ones that you can actually see what it looks like in Unity and then unexpose them later on. So you kind of get what your settings are here, because all you got to do is remember this number and then just transfer it over into Substance. But we haven't really done that here. I mean, we're going to keep all this stuff exposed, and it's always fun to do this, and you just see how it looks. And now let's go back and do a little fooling around with the pixel processor, which is in fact the part of Substance that does all your animations. It does other I mean, it does pretty much everything. But today we're going to somewhat animate our materials. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is we want to get a pixel processor. So we can either drag it out here or again, right click, add node, pixel processor. And what the plan is to replace this solid lavender, purple, whatever you want to call it, node, color node, with something that moves. Now, the pixel processor gives us outputs. It actually works out what each pixel does at any given moment in the material. In order to get to it, again, we're going to open it up with Edit, and it's going to just give us a constant float just by default. I'm going to get rid of that. And what we want to do is to get a couple of noises rotating counter to each other, so it won't look like it's rotating. And we're going to assign each one of those noises its own color, and then we're going to blend them so the two things overlap, and then we're going to replace all of that. We're going to replace this little node with all of that we're going to be building here. And so what that means is that all this big cloudy color mess, before it goes to the output, is going to get run through this mask and only appear in those areas. So let's get going. All right, so I'm going to double click on my pixel processor, and in order to start working on it, I'm going to click Edit. So how do we do this? Well, we know we want it to rotate, so I'm going to go get in my library, I typed in the words ROT, and this is the rotate position node. So it wants two things. It wants a position, and it wants an angle of rotation. Now the position it wants, it's a vector 2 because it needs an x and a y, and then this one's a vector 1. And I think they could have probably picked a better color scheme, but these are two slightly different greens. Okay, so we're going to add a node. We're going to create a getFloat2. So this is looking for a variable. You could put a constant in here. You can go add node constant float2, and it'll accept this information. That's a perfectly valid thing to do. But I'm just going to use the native $POS for just position, and then you can kind of change it later, because this way. If you do it this way, and you decide you don't want, I don't remember whether this does this in the center or at the 0, 0 mark. I don't really care in this case, but whatever it is, it's a lot easier to manipulate this later through more logic. In other words, I can multiply it by 0.5 or whatever, and to actually have it move around. It's easier than dealing with a constant, so we're just going to get rid of that. So just stick that in there. And the next thing we need to do is we need to tell it what angle of rotation. Now, again, you can put in a constant. This wants just a single float. And these little nodes match colors, so that always tells you what's acceptable. But that's not going to animate it for us because it's just going to sit there. I mean, it's going to, what it would do is, if you wanted to actually have your material appear at a particular angle and just kind of stay there, that's what you would use. You would use a constant. You would set this number to whatever you wanted to appear, just sort of as a static thing on here, and then you'd leave it. So, you know, yeah, you can do that too. I mean, it just depends on what you want to do with it. So we're not going to use a constant here. We're going to use another right-click, add node, variables, but this time we want just to get float. And again, we can click on this, and it's giving us a drop-down list of the things that fit that criteria. So we already made several float ones, and all of these will appear here. So this is how you can affect what's going on in the pixel processor. In fact, we're going to do a little bit of this later on. You know, you can create an exposed parameter that will affect what's going on inside your pixel processor. In this particular case, we're going to do time and $time, and that is going to just time. So every whatever unit it counts, I think it's probably milliseconds, I don't know, it's going to do what it's going to do. This is great. Okay, it's here, the logic is happening, but what do I do with it? We're going to add another node, and we're going to go into samplers, and because we're dealing color, we're dealing sample color. And this is the thing that is actually telling the material on a millisecond by millisecond basis what needs to happen to all the pixels on that material. If you want a more sciencey explanation, you're not going to get it from me. What we need to have happen, though, is that now we need to have it go back into our substance. So again, I'm going to right-click, and I'm going to set this as the output node. And that's it. So what's going on in here is now going to be the output of this pixel processor. And you will notice that it has gone from black, in other words, I don't understand, this is, you know, bad code, to something, yeah, okay, but there's nothing going on, but it's now registering as working. So what are we going to put in here? Let's look at some noises and see what we have. All right, so again, I type noise into my library, and we have a wide variety of noises. I will just pick clouds 1 and clouds 2. And these are black and white maps. Again, you can see the pixel processor will take both. It's got an orange and black and white. It doesn't care. So let's put this in here. And now it's showing up in here. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to have this. Now, I just know from experience that that's going to be moving super fast. But let's see what happens. Let's see what we just did. So we want this color to be affected by this mask. So we're going to make a blend. And we are going to have this color go into this top, into the top part, the top node, because we are going to be affecting it with this. Now this should, yeah, it automatically knows that this mask needs to have a grayscale. Just like it did with the gradient map a couple of videos back, it did the same thing with a grayscale here. Now you will notice that our lovely color is now being affected by this mask. I'm not going to get this any bigger because these are somewhat procedural, and if you start making them like bigger, they get very, very expensive. In the cases where I've wanted a noise, like I've really liked, because these noises are great, they're tiled textures, they have some really great stuff in here. But if I want it like, you know, if I wanted a 2K, what I usually end up doing is I will highlight this here. I'll go into, well, actually, first thing I'll do is I'll make it, because this is like super pixelated. First thing I'll do is I will ramp it up to the gorgeous size I want. Okay, so wow, that's nice. So I really want to use it at this resolution, but wowsy, look at that. That's kind of expensive. So what you can do is you can copy this, and I go into Photoshop. I will actually put it into my work in progress file, which is on my other screen right now, but take my word for it. And then I'll save it back out again. And then what I can do is I link it back up, then I can link it in here or import it, however you want to do it. But I go in here, right click, link. Once I've saved out my file, it will update. I will bring in the new bitmap, and then I can replace it here. And it will end up being the same size. Let's just pick a random 2K map here. It will actually, this information, because this is a 2K here also. So by just copying the surface of this, I'm essentially stripping out any of the procedural stuff that is part of this noise, and I'm just using the image as I see it. Now, I don't know about this particular clouds, but I'm sure it has all kinds of cool stuff where you can actually, this one doesn't seem to have a lot of that. But a lot of these materials in the libraries, you can, they are themselves toggleable, so you can have different sizes, different octaves of things. It's really cool. But if you want it super detailed, you get it the way you want it, and then you're using it as a static thing. Again, you're only using the picture information. So let's get this back down to a manageable size, because that's not going to animate very well at all. In fact, you know what we might even do is we might even drop it down a little bit more. So let's make it 128, because that'll be nice and lean. But look at that. At 128 and at 2K, they're basically the same thing. All right. So this will now go in here, and you can see that we're getting some variation in there, where there are parts of it that are not emissive at all because they are the blank spots here, and then there are parts that do emit. Now the proof is in the pudding. Let's export it out. I always do that. Let's export it out to Unity and see what happens. Okay. So let's see what's going on in here. Now you'll notice that as it's importing, it's changing what's happening, but it's continuing to keep the things that we've set in here, so it's not going back to the default. So I see this imported in, and one of the reasons why it's moving is because my animation update rate is at 0. So, and let's play and see what happens. Uh-oh. Oh, okay. There we go. So it's kind of spinning around and, I don't know, looking very cloudy and purpley. There you go. So that's the pixel processor. So we know that's working. I kind of like that effect. That's actually really neat. I have to remember that one. Okay. So let's make it cooler. But we've ascertained the fact that it works. And we will go back to our substance file. Oh, and in the meanwhile, what I also did, let's see if it looks actually cooler. I couldn't resist. And I actually did turn that map into the clouds one. I did a high res of that. I really like that texture. Okay, it's going to take a second. So we can replace that with this, which I'm willing to bet dollars to donuts is going to be cooler. And somewhat more efficient as well. So, you know what? I think just for the sake of expediency, I'm going to just use that one cloud one, and then we'll just have it rotate in different directions. It should be okay. Right, so we're going to basically do the same thing. Oh, let's toggle. Let's build in an exposed thing for that, so that people can actually toggle the speed at which that rotates around. So let's do that before we do the other pixel processor. So again, I'm going to double click on my graph area here, and I'm going to add a new input parameter. And we'll call this animation speed. And it'll put that dash in there for me. And what I'm going to do is, I do it without the dash, this way I can cut and paste because I'm lazy. Okay. I guess we'll do the defaults. We'll just leave it at what it is for right now. We can always change that later. But let's make them max. Okay. So, we've created this parameter, and let's put it into our pixel processor. So again, edit. I'm looking at what I made in my pixel processor. So what we want to do is we want to affect, I mean, the position's going to say exactly where it is. We want to affect the speed at which this happens. And so in order to do that, we're going to be multiplying time by whatever that variable is. So again, I'm going to right click, add a node, multiplication. And now I'm going to add another node that is a variable, and we just made a new variable which is a float 1. Let's do that part first. So we now have animation speed, so I'm going to pop animation speed in there, and we are going to multiply it by time. And we're going to put that in here, and that should expose that. Rather than going back to Unity, because we know it works, and we are going to, I'm just going to close this. Where we know we're going to add another one. I actually, by doing that, I got the basics of what both nodes are going to be. So I'm now going to just Control-C for copy, Control-V for paste. And it's already feeding off this same node. We decided we're not going to have two just because we're lazy. And now let me adjust this one. So what we wanted to do, so again, I clicked on this, I go to edit, and so now I'm in this second one. We want this one to go in the opposite direction. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, -1. So we're just going to go ahead and multiply this. Add node, operator, multiplication. And this time I'm going to add node constant. And I just want to float. I double click on that and I can set my number in here. And that's going to be -1. So what ends up happening now is that they're both pixel processors are working off of the same exposed variable. Only one of them is going to be doing it at the same speed in the exact opposite direction. So we now have these two nodes set up. And what we need to do is we need to get a second color, because this is going to make no sense if we do it with one color. Well, we'll see. I'm thinking ahead about what that's going to look like. It might not give us enough variation, but we'll see. Okay, so let's just drag another color out here, or I could have right-clicked, add node, uniform color. Now let's give it another. It's ugly. Okay, it's going to be pretty ugly too, but at least we'll be able to see what we're doing. And we can expose these two guys too, so people can change the color of their animation. So essentially what we're going to need to do is daisy chain these guys in. So this one got like this. We're going to make another blend node where this one's going to go. I'm going to attach it to this color. That's probably the best way to do it. So I don't know if that's going to give us enough variation. We'll see. We'll find out. I hate this color. It's something that you can really tell the difference between the two, but it isn't totally gross. I'll do for now. Let's make it a little bit more emissive. All right, let's see how this works. I'm not entirely convinced we're going to get enough contrast between the two colors, but there's only one way to find out, and that's to see what it looks like in Unity. So again, we're going to publish it. Okay. That's nice. So we'll wait for this to import and refresh. Hopefully, there we go. So let's take a look. Our animation speed is in here, but the colors we haven't set yet. So let's see what we probably should have done that also at the same time. But since we're here, yeah, you can't, I mean, I think it's there, but you can't really tell. Let's put in I'm going to just leave this play. Let's quickly go in there and expose these guys so we can actually see if it's working out for us. Alright, so we're going to, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a comment. Otherwise I get confused, so I'm going to just call this one emissive 2, and we'll call this one emissive 1. So now let's go in and make 2 more input parameters. So we're going to call this emissive 1. And we're going to call these color 1. Group will be emissive. Default at 0.5. Actually, you know, we're going to do it as a float force straight away because we know what we want to do. Color RGBA, and let's just give it a color close to what it's got now. And I wish you could copy these things. Do emissive 2. Okay, so we can go here now and expose this as emissive 1 and expose this as emissive 2, and let's, oops, we forgot to set that up. Let's go back in here so we can go back into just the easier view. Look at our emissive and just set this at what we want our default to be. So now we just go ahead and republish this. It'll save it automatically. So let's see what's going on in here. Give it a minute to refresh. Okay, so now, okay, I guess it did take. We can change, yeah, so it's affecting the color. I don't know that this would be my first, I mean, this probably need a less tight map, but you can see what's going on. So we got, okay, that's kind of nice. And then maybe something that's, this should give us a nice cloudy sort of thing. Let's see what's going on. But it's certainly enough to give you an idea of how you can use one color laid upon another color, have them spin around. Yeah, that sort of works. Yeah, okay, that works. And you know, this is it. I think this is as done as it's going to get. We have all of these various things that people can use. Oh, you know what? I'm going to give you guys a bonus, one more little quick video. I think this video has gotten long enough. I want to apply some sort of metallic scratches to this whole thing because honestly, I'm thinking it's a little bit too perfect. And so what we're going to do, it's not going to take us a long time. We're going to sort of, except for these little bolts here, we're going to just rough it up a little bit. So that'll be the next little video, and it shouldn't take more than 20 minutes. So I think that's it for today. And so we didn't finish, but we're going to have one more.